Awesome. Thank you, Jim, for inviting me to this beautiful place, Mandala Springs. So I'm working with Professor Richard Werner. We're setting up Valhalla Network DAO, which is a foundation run by governance token holders with a mission to set up community banks all over the world. Now, community banks isn't a new thing. The German economic model has done so well because it's been built on community banking. There's 1,500 Sparkassen in Germany at the moment lending to small businesses. Now, small businesses in general do not receive much funding from a banking system, but they rely on it so heavily because it's difficult to get funding from, capital markets, other means. And a survey we did last year found that 95% of respondents, small business respondents, seriously consider is the terminology, supporting a new community bank. And over 2/3 don't even approach their current bank to ask for loans because they've got the fear of being rejected and the hassle of applying. Because the customer service is so poor. So it's desperately needed. Yeah. And the beauty of community banks is, so Professor Richard Werner in the 90s, he, along with founding quantitative easing.
He founded quantitative QE. So he was at the highest of high levels in this world. He gets it at a depth that we could only imagine. Go ahead.
So in Japan, he's out there, he's invented QE. And he also, at the same time, founded a new, effectively, economic theory called the quantity theory of credit, which describes and explains how the banking system is so important and how the loans they give out shape everything in the day-to-day life. So whenever a bank gives out a loan, credit is actually created out of thin air. It's not just moved from one person's account to another, like they have you believe. It's actually like the banking system are wizards, and they've got this magic wand, which is the banking license. And this magic wand gives them the ability to create new money out of thin air. And the way that money is used impacts everything we see. So there's two streams. You've got productive credit creation, which is used for creating new goods and services and leads to new income streams that can then be used to repay the loan, and you then get the credit destruction. What does that result in? No inflation, but you get growth. So growth without inflation. You've got unproductive credit creation, which is credit which is produced and created for financial speculation, asset markets, consumption. And that leads to asset bubbles, inflation, banking crisis, and ultimately you've got increased inequality, depression, suicide rate goes up. So productive is really important. Yeah. Now, we find that small businesses, lending to them, the majority of funding that is created for small businesses is productive, which means you get job growth, you get productivity yes. Massively. You don't get banking crisis, you get growth, GDP growth.
As opposed to gamers, right? Yep. Currently, the people that are sucking the money out of our society, the people who Jesus in the stories was really pissed off at, were the people that were sucking the energy, the productivity out of society by gambling and gaming on the ability of the producers, right? That is insane that they are the wealthiest people in our world, many of them anyway, who simply play the game of betting on the producers of our society. And one of the things that I'm so excited about, and please finish, but I can't wait to get to the DAO, right? Yeah. That is so critical when we, the community, actually own our own banking system.
Yeah, so we were discussing last year how we're creating this decentralized banking system. That's the dream, to have this all set up over the world with these small local banks that lend for productive purposes to those small businesses that struggle to get it from the big banks. The big banks ignore them. Why? Because it's easier to give out one 200 million loan than it is to give out hundreds of small 100,000, 1 million loans. Yeah. So they're ignored. So we decided we want to decentralize the banking system, but also we want to decentralize the ownership of it. So the actual owners can be the people. Yes. So the system's built for the people and it's owned by the people through a DAO.
Oh my God, sounds like the Constitution in a little bit of a way.
So, that's it. We've had so much support already, really exciting. The people who have come into our seed, which made it oversubscribed, and our Series A so far, have all been people who see the current problems in society, see the banking system for what it is, and realize this change is desperately needed to help the small businesses, help economic growth, and ultimately lead to an improvement in quality of life. So then this idea of this whole permaculture, creating sustainable food, it plugs in so nicely because there's no reason, due to the benefits of a permaculture, the ROI you get from it and the collateral that's there, there's no reason why for every community bank that's set up, a food forest, a permaculture site couldn't be built with it, with a community bank helping support the building of it through financing productive credit creation.
Exactly. And why it's so logical on so many levels. Local, everything is think global, but act local. It's the local communities that are going to win and to show our neighbors how to do things. And banking, well, banking is one of the biggest problems. Kissinger's quote not only said, if you want to control people, control food, but it said, if you want to control the world, control the world's currency. The currency is the energy of the people, right? So what you're talking about solves that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And you might think, okay, well, if you're lending to small businesses, you're setting up these small community banks, that's going to be riskier, right? Well, actually, no, that's not the case. Small business lending isn't necessarily risky. It might be for a big bank who isn't getting to know their customers. They don't know what the problems the customer are facing, how they can help them the best. It's actually, it's the opposite. In the 2008 crisis, not one community bank in Germany, not one required taxpayer bailout, not one of them, because they have these customers and supporting them properly. And the customers that they're supporting aren't the ones who have got bad debt and aren't able to repay it. It's the financial speculators that the big banks are lending to, the unproductive credit creation. And once that credit stops and the tap is turned off, well, suddenly there's no more money pumping up the market. And suddenly all the value's gone and all these bad loans come in. So it's such an important thing to do. And by combining it with something like this, it ultimately you just need energy there, and then you've got the whole you've got the whole system.
So I've referred to the 10 trillion that's went into society quite a few times. If 1% of that 10 trillion went to putting food forests in the ground, that would radically change the world. If the other 99%, of course, that money was stolen from the people, right? But my point is this: is if the some of the rest of that, or the rest of that, would have went into what you're talking about. Boom, we're done. We're free. Overnight, we're free. And there's no reason that this can't happen quickly. In fact, I think that that's part of what we're doing this for, is to help inspire this action fast, because time is of the essence, my friends. Man,
awesome.
Beautiful, man. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And Professor Richard Werner, thank you so much for what you've done. You've come from the UK to be here today with us. And this is another element of the puzzle, a piece of the puzzle, of the freedom puzzle, that's absolutely fundamental. And you are raising money for this, so you've got some money to raise.
We're in our Series A. We're about 75% through it now. We don't have to raise billions, funnily enough, because we've got different phases set up so that once it launches, the DAO and the foundation will start receiving dividends from a phase 1 bank we set up. And then that will naturally flow into phase 2, where we start setting up these community banks everywhere. So it's a long-term mission, but we can see it that in 20 years, there's no reason why we can't have a Sparkassen under the Valhalla Network. If Valhalla Network's own Sparkassen, 1,500 community banks spread out across different continents, and then grow it even more, another 1,500 in 5 years later, and just grow it and grow it.
So it's scalable. Now, okay, so I want to use some permaculture questions here, and some questions about how can we include the network, be like the mycelial network, and make these connections and communicate the wisdom of everything happening. How can we do that in 5 years? That's a question, right? The new question creates the new answer. Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge tells us what is, and imagination tells us what will be. So the question, and imagination starts with an intent or a question or a desire. The question I have: how can we help you achieve that goal, which will benefit humanity in the next 5 years? That's the question to you all listening. How can we help this happen faster? And I see it pretty easily. Once you have kind of the investment, and then you start creating models. Once a model is proven, which you said can happen fairly rapidly.
The model is already proven. The Sparkassen is so successful. So the model's already there. What we're trying to do is now say, okay, well, we'll set up this specialist bank to start with, which will help the DAO and the foundation receive some dividends coming in, so everyone's happy. And then we'll start setting up these phase 2 community banks that take about 4 years to become profitable, but they are very profitable. And in 10 years, the ROI is it's over 100% on them. So it's a very feasible business model. It's been proven already. We're just trying to create it again under Valhalla Network on a much larger scale.
So resources and resourcefulness. The resources, you've already got the proof of concept in action that's proven to be better than the alternative. Now we need bankers. We need people who get this and they can start plugging in these banks all over the place and then creating this mesh network. And then we bring in Cordal. Then we bring in these other type of entities that are decentralized communication systems, not afterwards, but while we are doing this. And my friends, I see this transition happening in the blink of an eye. We are going to help secure the future for our grandkids and beyond.